Hello, what is good, good viber? It is your girl Esther Joy coming at you with another video. Happy day, happy new year, you're the tiger for anyone new, and what is good? So, we're gonna be talking about, you could say, a variety of really wonderful, valuable information. And of course, my co host is going to be hopping on pretty soon, Creative Learning and why? Because we're going to be talking about comprehending change, and we're going to be talking about this through the context that we have seen with writing our book. And if you have experienced any kind of change that you feel led to share at any time, feel free to share. We love hearing it. What is good, Kaylin? What is good, Avatar Solar? You guys are the best. Beautiful Dark Waters. Amazing to see you tuning in. Speaking of which, grab your water, grab your drink. Domingo, I almost didn't recognize you with that profile photo. I love it though. But yes, get yourself ready because we're gonna have a good conversation. It's gonna be a good time, and you will leave wiser than when you came. So, just so you know, a little warning there. A little warning. A little. Yes, but it's gonna be good. And drum roll for our guest of honor. Hey, what is good,
Good
Michael?
afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yes. Good day, good day. All right, well, it's good to see you, bro. Long time no see.
Amen.
Been like a solid 5 minutes. But with that being said, it's good to see you, Michael, our guest of honor, aka Creative Learning and Why. It is good to see you here. As you all may know at this time, me and Michael are working on a book called Scared to Be a Butterfly that he wrote a couple years ago, that is in the process of being published right now as we're speaking. It's so crazy to think literally next week we're gonna be looking at the last steps to publishing this book. So it's exciting. It's gonna be a good time, and we're gonna be talking a little bit about the context of the book in terms of just the themes that are pretty relevant if you're just a living human being that's going through change. And Michael, do you want to share a little bit about what inspired today's live? The topic.
Sure. In one sense, what inspired it was, well, what inspired numerous weeks of kind of breaking down. Because, as I said, when I first started the book, or the seed of it was like with so many authors, I had an idea popped into my head, scared to be a butterfly. That was it. I jotted that down on a Post-it and I put it on a notebook. Years passed, a contest came, and then I wrote a story. I thought this would work. What was interesting was that as I wrote the story, this is the really interesting part for me, and the part that gets interesting as an artist, is that as I started writing, even though it was a children's story, the story started speaking to me. And even the verses of the rhyming children's story spoke to me in very, very profound ways. Starting from the title, right? Like that simple title, like Scared to Be a Butterfly. Oh, that's cute. But at the same time, you can really embrace that. Scared to become the best version of yourself. Scared to become, to change from that which is comfortable on the ground, creeping and crawling and eating, to that which must, fly in the sky with the sun. And so what I did was I went through the story for our lives, and I picked out a couple of the main verses that really spoke to me about themes that I thought anybody could associate with, and I thought would be beneficial to talk about.
Yeah, and they definitely have been a benefit. I don't know about you all watching, but to me personally, and I'm just joking, to those watching as well, I can attest, have found the conversations to be really valuable. And the themes that you chose are right on point with, I feel, everything going on in the world. It's just so, the synchronicity is real there. So that's a really beautiful part. And especially today's topic, with the whole idea of comprehending change, what that looks like. The lines in the book that stood out I'll just talk or describe like the illustration because it's just so much fun. I never thought I'd like draw a stick of butter with wings, for an actual book before, but like it was awesome having that opportunity. And if you want to share a little bit about those lines, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And just for context, I'll say so. Last week we spoke about the first idea, which is I want to tell you a story about me because it's also a story about you, which is what we're talking about. This week we're going to be talking about kind of this question of what can you imagine, right? And what can you imagine in terms of becoming the best version of yourself, even if that version is so different. And perhaps it might be, right? Like the caterpillar is such a good metaphor because when you look at the butterfly, if we didn't know, how would you know that that thing became that thing? But that's how our lives are as well. So this particular part is where the caterpillar is kind of just doing his thing. I like it. It's like a munching along, enjoying life like when we're a kid. And then he sees the butterfly fly by and he says, so he calls and he says, "Hey up there, what are you, asked I?" And the wings pause before answering. "Why, I'm a butterfly." "Butter that flies?" I said. The butterfly giggled. "No, silly, it's one word, not two. I'm a butterfly, and so are you." I thought the butterfly might have bumped her head, so I slowly said, "Me caterpillar, you butterfly." So I'll pause there. But I like those lines because they're silly, and we all have that child spirit inside of us. But also, this is what I mean. It's just like you see how that verse is both silly and childlike, but so profound. Like he can't imagine being something that different is what those verses are about,
Yeah,
right?
like that. And again, I know like I've had the opportunity to listen and share and see it, but it's true. I agree with Domingo that said change is scary because I
Thank you,
think that's
Domingo.
the
Yep.
main part of understanding that everything is going to change. It's inevitable. Everything changes. Everything in nature changes. And it should, and that helps the flow and the cycle of energy to go through. But like from a human perspective, I think it's really easy and like personally when I think about some of the things I want or the goals that I have or the dreams that I'm wanting to, it does seem kind of incomprehensible. Like I can't fully share and visualize like it full all the way. There's always details that I'm like, I don't know how this would work or how this would actually be. And I think that's the cool part about change is that it gives us the opportunity to be like, you don't have to know everything. You can trust that it will unfold how it needs to unfold, but also it gives like having that little set vision a little bit helps with the, you could say, structure of navigating through that change. And with the butterfly, with the caterpillar, I feel like the caterpillar was given this opportunity that it was like, hey, you're going to change. The seeing the butterfly, I think that's a signifier of this is a change. I've never seen this before. But then understanding that, whoa, I can do this too. I think that's a really beautiful and
Yeah.
powerful part of whoever you are seeing in the world, whoever this human being is, they're human and so are you. And you could do what they're doing. And I love when people say that, like, I'm just me. You could do this too. And I mean, I just find it encouraging. I find that to be a really beautiful part about just the whole experience of living and the change that is inevitable.
When I looked at this part, like, and again, this is what I like about the story is like, I feel like there's levels to it in the sense that when I looked at this part, even the little details, which is usually how profound literature works, were meaningful. Like, right? Like he's like, "Hey, up there," right? Like looking up to our ideals, to the things we want, to the things that are beautiful, to the things that are not, to the things that are able to fly, like you're describing, to the things that have this power that we're like a freedom, for example, that we long for, but that we're scared of at the same time, you know? And I'm not going to read too much more, but I'm going to just point to this one other verse that comes right after that I mentioned before, that is one of my favorite, is where the caterpillar like says, oh no, you're going to become a butterfly, and the caterpillar gives all these reasons why it can't. It's like, nah, I'm good I'm good on the ground here. But ultimately what the caterpillar whispers almost to himself is, besides, I don't know how to become a butterfly. Right? And that is where I think that issue of imagination becomes so critical and so practical, right? Like, we have to be able to imagine it, you know? It's like this book, you know? It's Some Butterfly because it started off as this little, just jotted down on a crinkly Post-it. I promise you guys, that's how it started. And then it became this other thing and this other thing. And again, over 20 years, more than 20 years. And, you know, I was just writing the dedication and bio, and I was writing about how for a long time I just kind of forgot about this, you know. I did try to illustrate this with people before, like 20 years ago, and then it just periodically. And so maybe there's a lesson there about patience of what we imagine too. Right? Because it took a long time. I eventually put it down, but when it's almost like the blueprint of the caterpillar that's in the butterfly. When something is destined to be, it will be, right? Having that faith, you know, that I don't know, you know, Michael saying like, I'm a crappy artist. I do not have extra skills with drawing, right? And so how am I going to, you know, I'm a writer, but I need this other element. Okay, I think this will be beautiful. I think this could touch people, but you know, like I don't know, again, how.
Yeah, I think figuring out like the how, like you said, like I don't know how to become a butterfly. And the whole comprehending when it comes to the change is when you are a caterpillar, when we're in our comfort zone, you know, we've been there our whole lives. It's what we're surrounded with, and we're presented with this opportunity of change, and it's like, hey, you're gonna change, and it's like, but I don't know how to change. I don't know what I'm changing into. And I think it's easy for us to get intimidated by what we may want to change to, or what we see that we can change into. And it's almost like we go into our like cocoon, and I guess it works out. Ultimately we go in our cocoon and we come back out a changed person. But like you said, like I know as a kid I really wanted to grow up. I really wanted to like change into my higher selves, and I would have visions of that, and I didn't really know what that mean. I thought like maybe one day a switch would present itself in midair, and I'd like turn it on, and all of a sudden I'd be the person I always wanted to be. And no, that never happened, which is fine. But it really made me realize how change is something that's constantly happening. But it's so little on every single moment that we don't notice it until it's like monumental, and we look back and it's like, wow, all of that actually did happen. Like I was changing with every choice I made. So yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. It's our change comes. That's really good, Esther. Like our change comes the way the book comes, in a way. Like we want it to. I want it to be too. I want it to be like, clap on, and we're free. You know, we were spiritual. But instead, it is almost like so we can appreciate it, almost so like we can share it, almost so like we can encourage other people with our experience. We go through it the same way a book is created, like piece by piece, you know. By the way, somebody asked a good question. I can't totally see it, but they said, what if I'm reluctant? Do you see that question?
Oh, what happens if you're reluctant to change when we become an angry and resented caterpillar? That's a good question, Domingo.
I think that's, and I want you to answer, I'll let you answer that, but I'll say for me, it reminds me, that line where the caterpillar's like talking to the butterfly, and the butterfly's, oh, you know, you're good. You know, like inside you, that thing is already inside you. You got this, right? There's nothing really, you know, except for you just, all you need to do is let it happen. And the butterfly and the caterpillar's like, nah, man, you know, I'm good, right? There's a reluctance there. And when, I think if I were to be honest, I would say, the push to become our best selves, whether it comes from God, whether it comes from our parents, whether it comes from our friends and family, or all of them, can make us feel resentful. But it's almost like the scripture says those things, like when we're young, we're like, oh, I don't want to do this. But afterward, the lessons we learned from our family are so rich and so precious to us. And I think, Domingo, that's really ultimately all we really have is, in other words, all we really have is we're going to be, is the immaturity of the caterpillar. And then when we get to the stage of being the butterfly, being like, this was worth it. Being able to fly, being free, was worth it. But what do you think, Esther, for that question? I don't know if other people are hearing me. I'm not hearing you.
No. I was
Okay, you're
muted
good.
for a
Okay.
second. You're good. No, I immediately thought of long-term investments as if that has anything to do with the topic. Um, but no, you shared it very, very well. I think that idea of the pressure of change and how you have to change can be something that can lead to resentfulness. And then you
For
feel
sure.
angry. And so having that ability to reframe your mind and actually focus on who you are changing for. When we're resentful, we don't really think of ourselves as much as we think about the other person and what they've done. Like, how dare they say I have to do this, or how dare they look at me this way? And it's a lot of looking at that other person. And then I think it helps, when we're able to take that energy and push it towards helping us. And yeah, okay, Domingo also said, imagine like an angry caterpillar tried to take down all the butterflies, and it is so
That's
caterpillar like
book two right there, Domingo. That's book two.
it's like a horror story. That's crazy, Domingo. But
Or, you know what that reminds me of, actually? In a very practical way, it's kind of like, it's how intense human beings can be about their own spiritual sabotage, you know? And this is not a unique story. It's like, it reminds me of, you know, part of what I'm echoing is the story of Moses, right? And believe it or not, because God tells Moses, go and and confront the Pharaoh and say, let my people go. And Moses, for those of you who don't know, I guess most of you do, is like, what? Like, who am I? Who am I to do that? Who am I to live that out? He doesn't believe he can do it. He's like, who shall I say sent me? And then God says, I am that I am, sent you. But Moses is, despite everything, despite being called, despite having this destiny, is completely afraid. You know, he doesn't think he can do it. He doesn't think he's competent. But that's the encouraging thing, Domingo, right? I mean, I think that's the encouraging thing, is that there's a part of us that believes in us more than our minds does. It's almost like our subconscious, right? It's like, no, you got this. You're going to become that thing. Because think about the caterpillar, right? The caterpillar, the interesting thing that the story taught me was the knowledge to become a butterfly is already in the caterpillar. He doesn't need to learn it, you know? It is what he was born for. And that's what I would encourage, actually, the listeners and readers. Like, that's what this book is about: becoming doing and becoming what you were born to do and be.
period, period. On yes, wonderful. And what's good, Roberto? Just okay. All right, Domingo. Good question. What tips do you have for facilitating change in our lives? And okay, rapid fire time. That's such a beautiful question. Okay. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to ask. But so I would say for me, the top tip I have for facilitating change in my life is realizing how important those micro choices are. That micro choice of, should I turn off my alarm in the morning and go back to sleep? Should I just turn off the lights after I leave a room? Like these tiny little things that seem very insignificant throughout the day, if I can master these, if you can master choosing the right one for these tiny little tasks, I feel like it just snowballs and the momentum grows so that it's so much easier. They're almost like on autopilot. You just do the right thing all the time, and it doesn't take as much energy as it may have like a year or two before. But for me, I think that's really the biggest tip I have when it comes to navigating through change, knowing that no change is gonna come like immediately. Even what we're seeing with the world, like it's all coming in like a little bit at a time. And so by just taking those little micro choices, you'll be able to change. Start practice and start small. Yeah.
I
Yeah. And
like that.
Michael, if you want to add on.
Yeah, I mean, I like that a lot because it's very moment to moment. For me, the answer which comes is what I've been thinking about, yesterday and then this morning, which is imagination, right? Like the step to change is imagining that difference, like really bringing it into your imagination. Some people believe that the imagination is a sacred place, and what you put there gets this sort of energy, right? Like we could think of the third eye, the chakra, gets this energy and this sort of grows from there. So, like, we can get a pretty confident sense just from imagining, just from like starting to think, like, what if I, even if I didn't think like, oh, I'm not sure I can do it, I'm not sure, what if I just began to imagine it? Like, you see, I'll go with the book. Like, I was like, hey, I'm not an artist, I don't know how to draw, right? So I don't know how to get there. But what if I'm like, but I can imagine it, I can imagine seeing the book finished, I can imagine, talking with someone and being with an artist and being like, oh yeah, let's draw it like this, and combining the verses. And I truly believe that sets the wheels in motion in both our conscious and, more importantly, in our subconscious mind.
Wow, that's wonderful. Can you imagine? That's really what I'm thinking of all of the songs I know that have imagine in them now, but that's really solid advice. Definitely, Michael. The amount of times I've had friends, kind of subconsciously say, like, oh, watch how I'm gonna have to go as soon as I get this. And then, like, out of the blue, they have to go as soon as they get what they're getting, and they gotta go. And so they're like, imagine if so and so happens, and then it happens. And so the power of imagination is definitely one to be uh, practiced with and to hone in on, because absolutely. And I think that's so solid. Like working with businesses or like building businesses and working with partners, like imagination is probably the number one thing. It's like the most valuable thing for figuring out solutions to whatever problems may come your way. So imagination is beautiful, it's powerful, and it's definitely something that we should always have in our tool belt. Okay.
And just I'll say this quick thing, and just like the caterpillar, the words we have when we don't believe are just kind of like what's playing through our subconscious. Like, oh, I don't know how to do this, you know?
Mm.
And the thing is, there's a sense in which this is what we were born to do. Therefore, it will occur. So you can kind of go willingly, or you can go, difficult,
Haha,
with
difficult
difficulty,
mode.
you know. Um, but yes, imagining, um, from personal to professional, I think begins to plant that seed of what can be.
Yes, and I'm just gonna note what Stacy Cassandra said, but the lack of experience of being that newer person is truly what is frightening. For sometimes it's not the change of self, but the changing of our environments, because as you said, we are the butterfly, and if the caterpillar loves the leaves, the flowers in the next field seem so scary. And Stacy, I think that's a really wonderful just like insight that you're sharing with the idea that we're a lot more fearful of things changing around us versus the actual change that's already happening within us all the time. And I think that's really valid. Like our comfort zones or something that, as a caterpillar, we can get so attached to the ground and the leaves and wherever we are that we forget that there's so much more. And so I see, like, even what's happening to the world on this large scale is that it's forcing us to realize that, hey, you're a caterpillar. You might not want this change. You might feel like it's unfamiliar and it's not something that you really want to go through. But ultimately, you're going to be flying at the end of it. Like, you're going to have a better view. You're going to be able to see just so much more. So, I think that's a very beautiful part of looking at the change that is presented to you and how you take it. Because the world around you is going to continue to change, and you're going to continue to change. And so it
It,
is up to you to choose to change with the flow of the time or however that may look like. But
it's
yeah.
interesting, right? How many people seem to express, not just today, but other days, which y'all, I want you all to say me. I wrote it, so I'm talking from that same place. But you can see, I think, in our age and with our spiritual community, how there is this mature acknowledgement that some part of us doesn't want to become the next version of ourselves. Like people are wrestling with that. And I think it does come down to what I had said and then what you just said now. It's kind of like this faith in what you will become, you know, because, and part of that faith is seated in the fact that, one of the things I think I learned about caterpillars that I remember when I was studying them, when I first wrote the book years ago, was how much time they spend eating, right? Like they spend a lot of time, like, a huge amount of time just right? Because they're kind of getting ready for the cocoon stage. But believe it or not, that actually reminded me of, hey, Jedi, um, that reminded me of, sorry, I totally lost my thought.
It's all good. My dog wanted to join.
Yes. Sorry, where were we?
Okay. Oh man, you were on. And all right, I know that there are other people watching that can help us figure out where we were at because I also was a little bit distracted by my dog. Oh, and you were on a good dang. Okay.
Um, I think. Well, I know that the young lady had just asked a question, about dealing with becoming this other version of yourself, and we were
Yes,
talking
change
about like I
internally.
think my essential point was, and this would be you can see how faith and imagination are tied in here, right? It's like being willing to imagine that greater thing. Oh, we were talking about, by the way, like how much caterpillars love to eat, right?
Oh, yes.
And eating itself is interesting because it's such a physical and physically grounding process, right? Like you ever feel like off and you're like, oh, I just need to get something in my stomach and stuff, but it really roots you into the physical world. And that's all the caterpillar, as it's watching the butterfly fly by. But I really feel like that's an element of it's representing our spiritual life, right? Like being attached, consuming, nom, 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 you know? Until we get to this point, though, where we're, again, this other type of being. And I guess it's not always the easiest, definitely, but we have to have faith in that, like you were describing, in that being that will fly.
Mm. Yes, it's time to fly. And I agree with you, Book Wayfarer. Eating is awesome. Do to stay alive and whatnot. But with that being said, wow, Domingo, thank you for the question. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. and Stacy, Cassandra, like
Thank you.
really, really good questions. If anyone has any more questions, speak now or forever hold your peace. Feel free to use like the question feature somewhere down below. I'm pretty sure Instagram has, but yes. As you may know, at this point, me and Michael have been writing a book called Scared to Be a Butterfly that you can reserve tapping the link in our bios. This is coming out within the next 3 weeks. It's going to be published. So it's exciting times. That's what we're staying with. And we're going to be launching the pre-sale pretty soon for you to get your copy as soon as you can. So you definitely don't want to miss out the pre-sale if you don't have to. You're going to want to make sure that you're on the list so that we can contact you. But without further ado, we're going to come to a closing by just acknowledging the change that we have seen, something that's happened in our own lives that may have been incomprehensible at the time. And I'm going to throw this question to you. And everyone who is in the comments, feel free to like, comment, and share. And we'll also share what you guys put down. But yeah, Michael, what change has happened in your life that seemed incomprehensible at the time?
That's a good question. I think I'm going to stay with, for me, when I started to realize that I wanted to become a writer, right? And teacher, I'm a teacher and a writer. That's generally what I do. But when I started to realize that I also wanted to write and create, not to compare myself to him, but I wanted to be like Stanley Kubrick in the sense that he didn't make a whole bunch of movies, but everyone he made was he was dedicated to it, and it was all different, right? So in other words, there was a children's book, there was like a supernatural book, there was a spiritual book, there was right? And to be honest, that's what I used to imagine. Like, it wasn't one particular subject. I wanted to do a children's book and then go and do a totally different one, and then go into a totally different one. And I was like, how is the heck is this ever going to happen? Usually people have to write Tom Clancy has to write all military books, etc. But I'm actually there, like my first book is so hard for me to comprehend how marvelous, and I don't mean the writing or anything, but just the subject and what it's about, which is about dreams, like I was like, sometimes when I try to fathom that actually produces a state of reverence in me, like especially when I look back at the book I used to read about Joseph and the Coat of Many Colors when I was a kid, and like now I have the gift, and that I've even written a book on dream interpretation. It blows my mind, and that's something, yeah, that's a good example of like, I couldn't have imagined that, I would have been like, what about you?
I love it. Okay, Domingo. Well, you are full of wisdom. You're not that old. But okay. You are funny there, bro. You're funny. We love you, though. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, like you were sharing, Michael. I don't think I ever thought I would be like a writer, or someone who actually writes books. I did not think that I would write a single. I knew that I was not a good speller. I know this. I know this for a fact. My English professors, my English teachers, they all thought that I should probably not be in the honors classes, but I was. And yeah, I never really thought I would ever write anything. I never thought I'd have the confidence to share it, or that other people would find it valuable. And now that I'm about to publish this book with you, and this is like the fifth book that I've, well, I guess this is the first book I've co-published. It's just like mind blowing. It's mind blowing. Like last year around this time, I published my first poetry book, and in the physical, and like yeah, I never thought I would be publishing books out here, sharing my thoughts on things. Like, I didn't think I had anything worth writing about. And so I don't even know where these books came from. But I know that it's a blessing, and I feel so honored. Like, it's so cool to know that I've created and I've helped create these works. You know, I've helped create this book that we're about to publish, and I would not have thought about, like, I wouldn't think that that's what I would be creating. So I'm so thankful for it.
I'm so glad you did, you know. And yeah, and I want to encourage everybody out there is that it's kind of like that's how it works. Like that's I think that'll be my closing thoughts. It's like sometimes like our imagination has this power to create way beyond what we can consciously comprehend, and we really have to get that to let it go. So in other words, like remember I just said, and this is how art, like you can study artists, and if you're an artist yourself, you know this, like this is how it works. Like I wrote down that little, just that little thing, right? You know, and now like look where we are, right? Like what it's unfolded to become. And the thing was, when I wrote down that little title on the post-it, and even when I went to write the story, I did not know like what it was going to be, right? I did not know it was going to be, hey, it's going to be a rhyming children's book, da da da, you know. It's just imagination, or the power that is within us presents itself through intuition, right? Through imaginings, and says, hey, you can do this. And the thing is, it's not about a particular person. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm talented, that's right. No, it's about the glory and the light that's in the imagination. I'll leave it there, you know.
Yeah, period. The imagination is like, geez, it just, you're kind of invincible if you use your imagination, you know, correctly. There's literally nothing that you cannot create or do or, you know, bring into your mind for whatever you're going through to assist you in. So we've been blessed big time with our imagination. And Stacy Cassandra says, for me, it's greater my need to share your voice. It's deeper the fear goes for being seen. Oh, that's a good one. So that's a good one, Stacy. And I know that, like, thank you for sharing your voice here, you know, and
Amen.
sharing it with the people, the souls that are in this space, and letting us share it with you, you know, amplify. Because your comments are super duper appreciated, and we appreciate you, Stacy, for just sharing. What is good, Patterns and Sugars? Good to see you here, Chantel. But yes, we are all here to just let you know the purpose of this live was to show you that things are always changing and you are also always changing, and that you can change into who you are wanting to become. And it just takes a little bit of imagination and a little bit of doing, choosing to be that person every day. So I appreciate you all for joining and taking some time to just be with us. Yes, I feel the gratitude. If you have any last words that you'd like to share, any questions on the book, on change, this topic, feel free to let us know. Me and Michael will be here for a few moments to just be thankful, be like pumped that we're able to share this stuff. And if you are interested and you haven't already reserved your copy of the Scared to Be a Butterfly book, tap the link in our bios. You will see all the information there to reserve your copy, because believe it or not, it looks like we're gonna have our pre-sale in like two-ish weeks, like maybe a little under 2-ish weeks. We'll see how that goes. So that's gonna be exciting. It's exciting. And yeah, we appreciate you for taking some time to be with us during this time of massive change. Just remember that it's good. It's a good thing. And we're growing together. So yeah. Shout out Domingo for staying to the end, asking those good questions, humoring
Thank
us.
you, Dee.
Yeah. And we will talk later. Any suggestions or any questions, feel free to DM and ask us at any time. But without further ado, check out the book. Check the link in bio. We'll have more updates.
Beautiful book, beautiful illustrations for children of all ages, or you know, yeah.
Yes. We're all children in God's eyes. Amen. Hallelujah.
Amen.
But yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you, everybody.